Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the suitably futuristic surrounds of the Science Museum IMAX Theatre. I'm Tom Clark, the Science Editor with Channel 4 News. I am delighted to be invited by CIPA to chair tonight's debate, because to me as a journalist, the rise of artificial intelligence is perhaps one of the most important stories of our age. Just on that clip, that's from Humans, a Channel 4 series that many of you might have caught. Trust the channel I work for to find the sex and violence angle in the rise of artificial intelligence. And while for most people, human-level robotics and human-level general intelligence are the most appealing and interesting elements of this whole debate, they're in fact a very long way off. But what's actually going on in the background, and which is happening apace, is the rise of intelligent software that's already changing our lives in ways we can't imagine. And it's happening faster than you can say incorrect item in bagging area or turn around where possible. Although, as I think as we're going to find this evening, it really is too late to turn around. Before I introduce our panel of specially hand-picked, truly expert speakers, I will remind you all of our motion for this evening. This House believes it is inevitable that within 25 years, a patent will be filed and granted without human intervention. Now, to debate this, unfortunately, because I'm not an expert in this, I just think it's very, very interesting, are a team of true experts. On my left, those for the motion: Callum Chase, our futurist for the evening, Chrissy Lightfoot, a specialist in the future of legal services, and to my right, those opposing the motion, I have Nigel Hanley, who knows perhaps more than anyone else about emerging technology and patent law, and Ilya Kazi, a chartered patent attorney. A little bit more on each of them in a moment.
This is a gentleman, in a way, we have to thank for all this. Gordon Moore, one of the founders of Intel, wrote in a paper in 1965 that the number of transistors on a chip was doubling every couple of years. It's since been updated, and broadly speaking, Moore's law means that computers, £1,000 worth of computing becomes twice as powerful every 18 months. Now, when you double something, that's an incredibly powerful process. This is a chart of exponential growth. This is the number of transistors on Intel chips. The interesting thing about an exponential chart is that wherever you are on it, you're always at the knee, something a lot of people don't understand about exponential curves. The past always looks relatively uninteresting, and the future looks very exciting. It's really important to get your head around exponential growth if you want to understand what kind of a future we're heading towards. If you were to walk 30 paces, you'd travel about 30 meters. If you could walk 30 exponential paces, so your first step was 1 meter, your second step was 2, your third step was 4, and your fourth was 8, and so on, you'd go to the moon in 30 paces. In fact, that's not quite right. You'd get to the moon in 29 paces. The 30th pace would bring you all the way back. And that points to another thing about exponential growth. Not only is it very powerful, it's backloaded. Imagine you're in a football stadium, which has been made waterproof. Somebody walks out into the middle, and she drops a single drop of water in the middle of the pitch. And a minute later, she drops 2 drops there. A minute later, 4 drops. And a minute after that, 8 drops. How long do you think it would take to fill the stadium? The answer is 49 minutes. But the really scary thing is that after 45 minutes, the stadium's still only 7% full. The people at the back are looking down and thinking, it's getting a bit wet down there. 4 minutes later, they've all drowned. This sort of thinking led some very influential and bright people last year to start talking about the artificial general intelligence that Tom rightly says is not coming anytime soon, but some several decades, very possibly. And they said, in Stephen Hawking's words, we're facing potentially the best or the worst thing to ever happen to humanity. Now, I'm sure Tom didn't do this, but most journalists only heard the negative side about that, and so this gentleman got a lot of extra appearances. But actually, what Hawking, Gates, Musk, Wozniak, and many others were saying was that it could be very bad. The Terminator isn't really the right metaphor. Or it could be truly wonderful. Demis Hassabis, one of the co-founders of DeepMind, the company that designed the system that you saw the video of earlier, which is a company that Google bought a couple of years ago for $500 million when it had 75 employees and no revenues. Demis Hassabis has a nice phrase. He says, humanity's plan for the future should be twofold. Step 1, solve intelligence. Step 2, use that to solve everything else. Climate change, poverty, death. if you have a brain, if you have an intelligence which is, say, 1,000,000 times smarter than us, these sorts of problems become solvable.
And now next to our first speaker to oppose this evening's motion, Nigel Hanley. Nigel is a senior patent examiner who's searched and examined applications in the information technology field for 16 years.
And actually, we are sort of legal professionals. And if you look at the Frey and Osborne study for Oxford University, they made the point that only probability of a legal professional being replaced, about 3.5% in the next 25 years. Okay. First up, I have an admission to make. I can see how AI might help me in doing the searching on any patent application. And search engines are undoubtedly very, very good. They're exceptionally good at finding pictures of cats doing funny things. But how does a search engine work? Anyone know how the Google search algorithm works? Google's got loads of patents, hasn't got one for its search algorithm. We have no idea how that works. And that causes me a problem, because I want to know how the search tool works, produces the results. Okay. There's also the product promotion. Who's here looked up for their llama trek in Peru holiday and then found that for the next 10 weeks, all they get when they do a search on Google is every other company that does llama trekking in Peru, Chile, Argentina, and Brazil. Who pays for that product promotion? And how do you apply that for patent searching? If I write the software, do I want my patents to appear as prior art on somebody else's application? Or do I want to bury my patents somewhere so they don't know, so I can then sue them afterwards?
Nigel, now before we hear from our next speaker for the motion, I wanted to introduce a clip of an interview I did earlier this year with the novelist and screenwriter Alex Garland. Now, he's most famous for The Beach, which has absolutely nothing to do with artificial intelligence at all. But since then, he's written and directed a very, very interesting movie called Ex Machina about the potential for artificial intelligence. It did, of course, feature some very glamorous robots to keep us all interested, but it explored a lot of the really important issues. And I think Alex Garland spoke particularly well of his profound anxieties about where AI could take us, but also his optimism for the emerging intelligence. So let's just have a quick look at that clip.
While AI may pose existential threats, Alex Garland is more interested in how it could be humanity's only future.
I would say there'd be a continuation of us. There'd be an evolutionary continuation of us. It's something, it's not like we would die. We'd be changing our form in some respects. So
Something to hope for.
I think so.
Not everyone likes the idea of machines replacing our jobs, let alone our species. But the journey has begun, so it might be time to start thinking about it.
Now, someone who is definitely thinking about it is our next speaker, Chrissy Lightfoot. I'm not sure she shares the same level of optimism as Alex Garland. Obviously, he's quite poetic and far out about it. But Chrissy, CEO of Entrepreneur Lawyer Limited, a consultancy specialising in the future of legal services, AI and robotics in the law. She's also the best-selling author of The Naked Lawyer and Tomorrow's Naked Lawyer. She sits on the UK Technology Advisory Council working to shape the development of cognitive decision tools such as IBM Watson. Chrissy.
Thank you. So currently there are automated cognitive computing and AI systems that are supporting lawyers in their role, but also replacing them. And as machines become more intelligent, it's inevitable that the machine will move up the legal vertical and do more replacing of the human lawyers than supporting. It's moving from a cart horse to a racehorse within a decade. And it's going to move into the realm that at first, patent attorneys like Nigel and Ilya may think basically they're going to be immune. I don't think that's true. And this is why. Within the legal ecosystem, we'll see the progression of AI evolution from cognitive computing, i.e. needing vast quantities of big data, which we're all familiar with, and that's what e-discovery is and research is doing at the moment, and mimicking the human brain to interactive intelligence and design algorithms, which means intuitive and self-learning, like IBM Watson was and is and moving towards. And then eventually AGI, the artificial general intelligence, which Callum touched on 20 minutes ago or so. But this will probably come out much later than the 25 years that we're debating tonight, certainly the AGI element. But the rest is happening now. The transition from cognitive intelligence to iterative, intuitive intelligence to superhuman intelligence is already underway. And let's not forget the rate of technological development and AI innovation is exponential, as explained by Callum earlier. And if you remember, that exponential curve is phenomenal. We might have gone along in a little like this, but we're actually at the point in history where it's going to go like that. And it's important you think about that, because just think about what's happened in the last 10 years and 5 years. iPads, iPhones. We'd never have even dreamt that something like that would exist 10 years ago. But we're now in an exponential curve. So something that's going to happen in 2 years might have took 10 years before. So if we look at cognitive computing, we're currently seeing an increasing digitization of content across the world.
Before we get on to Ilya, who I hope is going to ground us back down in a bit of patent law before we get carried away, I wanted to bring you back to where some of these blue skies people are going. Another clip from that interview that we did with Alex Garland earlier.
Intelligent software is already crawling the web, studying our shopping habits. It recognises our photos online. Our mobile phones can learn our voices, and driverless cars are just around the corner. The building blocks of a machine revolution are upon us.
They thought that search engines were a map of what people were thinking, but actually they were a map of how people were thinking.
Every now and then we find ourselves sleepwalking in something really dangerous. There's a lot of allusions in this film to the atomic bomb program, because there's similarities, and you find, okay, by splitting the atom, there's something very useful that can come out of this and something fantastically dangerous, and you know, wow, we'd better sort of take this really seriously, because they can do some things better than us already. They can make some kinds of decisions, some kind of processing decisions better than we can. That you don't need to know more than that to know that there's an issue.
Are you building an AI?
I've already built one.
The film's release is timely. Just last week, a number of leading thinkers in AI signed a letter calling for more public debate on the threats it poses. Murray Shanahan was one of them.
We need to start talking about this stuff, but yes, it's decades away before I think it might become any kind of real serious issue. So the hope is that by then we'll have thought sufficiently about these kinds of problems to ensure that no real threats from AI actually arise, that it's a safe and beneficial technology.
Decades away, but 25 years? Ilya, it's your turn now to oppose the motion, to be the second of the oppose the motion. Ilya Kazi, a chartered patent attorney who works with clients ranging from startup businesses to multinationals in fields of IT, engineering and electronics. He has provided expert commentary on numerous strategic intellectual property issues for national global media, including CNN, Channel 4, The Times, the FT, Daily Telegraph, The Economist. Ilya, let's hear your thoughts.
Is that? I mean, let's have a look at an A320. So this is, you may have seen the incident in the Hudson, and you probably can't read up there, but this is a transcript of the captain and the computer automation. So this is pretty much state-of-the-art electronic control systems in a computer, and you've got, you're all familiar with the bird strike and Sullenberger landing in the Hudson. So sometime after the engines flamed out, there's a chime from the flight warning computer, and a little bit long after that, so that the computer's interactions are in red. It comes up with traffic. Then the predictive wind shear alert, which is a very useful thing. It's made flight safer. Says go around, wind shear ahead. Now it was a bit difficult for him to do that with both engines out. He was subsequently told to monitor vertical speed, and then there's a long beep, which I don't know whether it's masking an expletive from the flight computer, but it makes me think of Airplane and George getting his parachute and jumping out of the window. So. Now, I think every single person on that plane was glad that there was a human to take control on that situation. And so what are we talking about here? We're talking about the situation of judgment in an unusual one-off situation. And let's think about the driverless car, which we've talked about. Now, as we've said, people have been making exploratory robots for a while. In factories, you can follow a white line. But what would happen if you had a driverless car driving around in London? it's all very well, it can identify the curbs, it can identify the lines. What happens when someone steps out with a pushchair in front of the car? What does it do? Does it decide to swerve onto the pavement? Does it decide to swerve into the path of an oncoming car? How does it make that decision? Does it assess the financial value of the likely damages based on the number plate of the car that's coming, or the value of the neighbourhood? Who decides what it does? Does someone program it to do that, or does someone program it not to take that information into account?
Callum Chase, Chrissy Lightfoot, Nigel Hanley, Ilya Kazi, thank you very much indeed. And the votes are in, the results are there. 80 yes, 60 no. It's a little bit approximate, but I think there's sufficient margin there for the motion to have been quite clearly carried. So congratulations those on the left.
Well done, go for.
The AIs have it.
Very good.
Thank you, Tom.